We're at SummerSlam and we kick off night one with a queen.
A storm is coming.
Jade Cargill is here and she's looking to win her first singles title in WWE. But can she overthrow Tiffany Stratton? Well, the match is on, and Jade immediately pounces Tiffy, who manages to cling onto the ropes for dear life, as she's able to ascend to the heavens, although a subsequent crossbody attempt is countered, as she gets planted down with a big scoop slam. And after a kick to the back, Cargill is impressively able to deadlift Stratton over her head, and eventually, she just hurls her to the outside. The champ's back may be broken in half, though the storm doesn't care as it continues to come, with her looking for a powerbomb, which gets blocked by a trio of punches, allowing for Tiffany to dive onto the Queen of the Ring winner with a blockbuster. But Jade refuses to stay down, so Tiffy gets a magnificent idea, building a full head of steam as she dives onto Jade. Only issue being is that the challenger manages to grab her and scoop slam her into the hardest part of the ring. And after powerbombing her into the barricade, Cargill throws Stratton back into the ring, and with a total of the crowd, she eventually follows. But this gives Tiffy enough time to recover as she looks for a float over Alabama Slam, which gets countered into another powerbomb. This time, last ride style, as Jade goes into the cover, thinking the match is done. But it's not just yet, as Tiffany kicks out. So for face wash into the canvas, Jade looks to inflict more damage as she connects a German suplex. And with not one, but two more, she screams a famous phrase called Suplex City with a certain word on the end, as she goes for another suplex variant, which gets backflipped out of, although Tiffany's following strike is nowhere to be found, as she nearly gets speared out of her damn boots. Yet she still has them on, which is in part what allows for her to kick out a 2. So Jade stays on the offensive, as after an inverted scoop slam, she goes back to the suplexes, nailing 2 back-to-back Germans before she looks for a third. Although Tiffy blocks this time, and subsequently, she's able to connect the float over Alabama Slam with all the strength she has left in the tank. Even though this can only salvage her a 1 count. So she looks for the prettiest moonsault ever, although Cargill is too quick to get up as she meets her up there and connects a humongous elevated sidewalk slam. Then Jade looks to blast Tiffy with a huge pump kick, although she avoids it, then attempts to roll her up, which doesn't work. But as both women get up, Tiffany runs at Jade, which gets her a big pop-up side slam for her troubles. But this still doesn't keep Stratton down. So Jade goes berserk, nailing a trio of devastating powerbombs back to back to back. Then she looks for the finishing blow, which Tiffany counters before drop-kicking Jade down and quickly following this up with the prettiest moonsault ever. Only Nia Jax has ever kicked out with this move, and you can now add Jade Cargill to that list. Tiffy is stunned, so she goes for one more, although Cargill moves out of harm's way and snatches her up and plants her right back down with Jaded. As with that, we start SummerSlam weekend with a huge title change. Jade Cargill is now on top of the SmackDown Women's Mountain. She is now the WWE Women's Champion. It's a huge way to kick off the show, but how do we follow the opener? Well, it's finally time for AJ Styles to get his hands on Dominik Mysterio, but of course, Finn Balor and JD McDonough accompany him to the ring. But Dom actually tells them to go to the back. He wants to do this on his own, and his Judgment Day brethren allow for him to do so, walking away from the Intercontinental Championship match. But as Dom watches on, AJ Styles looks to immediately roll up the champion and steal the win early. Yet Dom kicks out, and once both men get up, it's now the champ's turn to try a roll-up win, which similarly doesn't work, as Styles kicks back and sends Dominik to the outside. Then he looks for something big, even though the Weasel gets out of dodge. But as he celebrates this, AJ Styles gives chase and enziguris him in the head. And with a front suplex into the barricade, alongside being swung into it, Styles puts him into the ring and looks for a phenomenal forearm. Although as Dom gets up, he realizes the situation he's in and bails to the outside once again. But once again, Styles gives chase, and Dom doesn't realize until it's too late, as he's nailed with a phenomenal forearm to the outside. And after whipping him into the ring post and steel steps, he sends the bloodied Mysterio into the ring and follows, as the coward then begs off the phenomenal one. Though a subsequent cheap shot fails, as he gets a phenomenal blitz for his troubles, culminating in a lethal lariat. And with a vicious knee drop, Styles goes for another, yet Dom moves out of harm's way and is quickly able to drop kick the TNA legend down, and he then just chokes Styles, and after letting go, he goes to grab him, which allows Styles to lead a bloody face, and once both men are up, he follows this up with a Pele kick. But it's now Dom who pushes back, as he then runs off the ropes and gets dropped by a German suplex, which seemingly only angers him as he connects a big neck breaker before going to the top rope. But AJ kicks up and meets him up there just like Jade did with Tiffany. And unlike that moment, this leads to only one warrior crashing and burning, as after a further knee drop onto Styles' knee, Dom laser focuses in on that area, though Styles yet again kicks back before forearming him down. But then Dom kicks back as he then stomps Styles' chest to Kingdom Come, and once he's done, he tries to pin Styles with his feet on the ropes, which the referee notices, leading to them getting into an argument, although Styles inadvertently clocks the referee. And this split-second opening allows for the champ to low blow the challenger. And as the referee crawls to his feet, Dominik flies like a bird with a frog splash. But the referee has a slow count, allowing for AJ Styles to kick out. Dom is beside himself with rage, so he calls Finn Balor and Jade McDonough to come on out. Yet this falls on deaf ears. So Dom goes back into the ring and looks for a 619, which gets beautifully countered into a Styles clash. Is this it? Well, no, it's not. Everyone is in disbelief as Dom starts to rise, and with the two bloodied men face to face, Dom gets quickly dropped by one more Pele kick, as with a subsequent phenomenal forearm, we see a new Intercontinental Champion. AJ Styles has done it, he's gotten all that he wanted, and Dom is left with no title and no Judgment Day in sight. But what's next? Well, up next, it's time for Jelly Roll's WWE in-ring debut. And with some Apex backup, he and Randy Orton look to conquer Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre. But before the match can even officially begin, Drew McIntyre headbutts Logan Paul out of nowhere. It was all a ruse, he never actually befriended the Maverick, and he still hates Randy Orton as the Viper eats a Claymore kick. Then Jelly Roll tries to step up, though he gets smacked and Claymore down as well. The Scottish Warrior has torn this match apart, and the guest host of SummerSlam has a backup plan that tomorrow night the tag match will still take place with Logan Paul getting a new partner. And in the words of Adam Pearce, that's official. Cardi B lays down the law, but what about Drew McIntyre? Well, before we find out his motives, it's time for a full-fledged tag team match for the Women's Tag Team Championships. Can Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair become the champs, or will the Judgment Day retain? Well, the match is on, and Charlotte Flair immediately runs into a power slam courtesy of Raquel Rodriguez. Then she quickly tags in Roxanne Perez, with Raquel assisting Roxy with a huge shoulder tackle onto the Queen. But Charlotte knees back before nailing a spinning back elbow and subsequently tagging in Alexa Bliss, who just stomps the Prodigy with assistance from the ropes. And with a backbreaker and a face plant into the canvas, Alexa Bliss manages to nail a picture-perfect insult to injury before quickly tagging in Charlotte Flair, as she's then the one to connect double knees, and then tags back out to her partner. and Bliss goes into the cover, thinking that may be it, though this doesn't work. So Bliss does more double knees, this time onto the arm, which seemingly doesn't affect Perez, who fights back with the exact same arm before connecting a flippy facebuster onto Bliss as she tries to pick up the win. But the keyword is try, as she kicks out. So Roxy tags in Raquel, with Rodriguez nailing a barrage of strikes on a Bliss, culminating in a big lariat. And now, the biggest woman in the match works over the smallest woman in the match, including several elbows into the corner. Everyone is desperate for Bliss to make the tag, though she can't quite yet, as Raquel continues to work Alexa over. But as she looks for a follow-away slam, Bliss manages to turn it into a DDT. Though Roxanne Perez yoinks Charlotte Flair off the apron and pounds her with punches over and over again. All the while, Raquel gets back on top with a big power move. Then, she manages to hit the follow-away slam, and from here, she tags in the Prodigy with the two connecting a double back body drop. And from here, Roxy just punches Bliss like she did to Flair, ending with a slap to the face. And after a kick to the back, she starts to work on Bliss's leg, and once she's eventually done, she roundhouse kicks her skull. Though this doesn't do the trick, so she nails a DDT, but Bliss kicks out all the same. So after working over in the corner, she tags back in the muscle of the group, as if a shot to the gut, Raquel runs and delivers a brutal clothesline to the back. And with another to the front, she goes for a powerbomb, but Bliss fights back with a trio of punches, though her following shot gets blocked as she gets drop kicked back down. And finally, Charlotte is in the match, and she takes out the Judgment Day with merely one quick swoop of attacks. She even spears Roxanne Perez on the outside, though as she gets back into the ring, Raquel looks for a sidewalk slam. Yet Charlotte is able to knee Rodriguez and takes her down with a tackle. And then Flair looks to lock in the figure eight, although before she can fully get it in, Roxanne Perez breaks up the submission. However, this gets the attention of Alexa Bliss, who DDTs Roxanne on the concrete floor. But as this is happening, Raquel is able to nail her to harder bomb, though Charlotte sticks in the fight, so she goes for one more, yet Charlotte is able to counter with a black body drop, although this only leads to a kick to her face and a big boot to her nose. But this doesn't do the job, so Raquel has to rely on the loopy Roxanne, who just barely got up, and this decision costs her everything, as after both women get taken out by Charlotte Flair, the Queen nails a natural selection onto Roxy, and after quickly tacking in Alexa Bliss, she then connects a Twisted Bliss to pick up the huge win for her team. We have new tag team champions! Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair have proven that they can coexist, and maybe, just maybe, they are friends. Although one person who isn't friends with Roxanne Perez makes her presence known, as Liv Morgan comes out and confronts Roxanne Perez. The hometown girl is back, but she isn't able to compete, though that may just not be necessary. But what's next for Liv Morgan? Well, before we find out, it's time to find out who is the greater warrior, Alistair Black or Damian Priest. As the match is on, Black immediately nails a running knee strike on the Priest, though he won't stay down for long, so Black forearms the former El Campeon before lighting him up with a vicious striking combination which keeps Priest down temporarily, as after a double foot stomp and double axe handle combination, he kicks his back twice, and following this, he goes to grab him, yet Priest fights back with a trio of kicks, even though his fourth kick is nowhere to be found, as he gets one right back to him and to his skull. And with one to his gut, Black then goes into the corner and calls for Priest to get up, as he goes for a bicycle knee strike, which gets blocked as Damian is able to grab him and connect an elevated flatliner. But Priest's first move of the match isn't enough to get the job done, so he goes for a chokeslam, which gets swiftly blocked by an elbow, as this leads to a Black mass knocking Priest out cold. Then he just waits, and once Priest eventually crawls his way to his feet, he gets hit with one more Black mass. And finally, using his own foot, Black raises up the corpse and knocks him back down with a third. As just like that, this match is over. Alistair Black has won, and he has decimated Damian Priest to do it. It's his biggest win since his return, as the dominant Damian Priest just got effectively squashed by Alistair Black. How do we follow this? Well, it's time for the co-main event of the evening, as it's time for the World Heavyweight Championship clash between CM Punk and Gunther. Who will stand tall? Well, the match is on, and both men lock up, with the ring general proving that statement to be correct as he manhandles Punk in this department. But the Stratton Saviour doesn't give up on a fight, even taking him down, though Gunther quickly takes back control. Yet Punk is able to get out of his grasp, though he can't quite escape a big scoop slam. But a subsequent knee is nowhere to be found, as Punk is able to launch an attack on the champion, which seemingly has no effect, as the ring general chops Punk in half. Then Gunther looks for an early powerbomb, although with a trio of punches, Punk escapes and runs at the champion, who looks for a German suplex, yet Punk escapes and looks for one of his own, which also fails, as the ring general is able to floor the Stratton Saviour with a breathtaking lariat. And he goes into the cover, looking to cut the match short, which doesn't work, so he looks to squish his opposition, though Punk moves, and once he gets up, he connects a tilt-a-well neckbreaker, and after a kick to the back, he grabs Gunther, though he jawbreakers him back and grabs his wrist, receiving a swift forearm and an attempted chop, but this backfires horribly as Punk gets another chop delivered onto his plate. Then the challenger gets thrown into the corner and gets uppercutted down, yet this choke of his boot fails as he gets a kick to the back again, which only fires him up, elbowing Punk down. Then Gunther's knee finally connects, alongside him squishing Punk. Though the best in the world survives, but he's not thriving, as Gunther just continues to dominate, as after an impressive deadlift gut-wrench suplex, he just demands for Punk to bring it. And he attempts to with a slap, which gets him one right in his face, so he punches back along with firing Gunther's leg up with kicks, finishing it off with one to the gut, and with another, he looks to pick him up, which is something he can't seemingly do, with Gunther getting back on top. As after a Uranagi, he focuses in on Punk's hand, stamping it on it not once, not twice, but thrice, and it damn sure wasn't nice. Then he targets the leg, before switching things up once again, and stomping on and over Punk's gut. And with Punk flat on his arse, Gunther just boots him in the face. Then he looks for a powerbomb again, though once again, Punk gets out of it with a trio of punches, as he attempts the GDS, which equally gets blocked, and with a third chop crumbling the best in the world, he goes to the top rope looking for a splash, although Punk avoids this, and then he kicks Gunther down twice, before hitting a knee to the temple, before sending him into another corner to hit another knee, which is followed up by a clothesline. Then it's the Stratton Saviour's turn to ascend to the heavens, as his elbow drop is actually able to connect, and he signals that it's time to go to sleep, though Gunther slips out of it, even though his next chop is nowhere to be found, as Punk looks for the GTS again, which Gunther tries to block, although this ultimately fails, as the GTS is able to land. Gunther is out! Punk thinks he's won, yet Gunther's will is unlike any normal man, as he survives. But for how much longer will this be the case? As he immediately transitions into an anaconda of ice, there's nowhere for the champion to go, so he's forced to fight out of it, with 3Ds right to the back, but his lariat gets dodged, as Punk lifts him up for one more GDS, yet them knees to the back allows for his back to give out, and Gunther takes full advantage of this, grabbing CM Punk and driving him down with a hellacious powerbomb, folding him up like a sandwich. Yet somehow, someway, Punk finds a way to kick out a 2. So Gunther then just applies a rear naked choke, and even though he tries his best, CM Punk just can't quite escape the ring general's grasp, as the Stratton Saviour passes out. Gunther retains once again, CM Punk loses another world title match, and the Ring General ultimately stands tall over the future Hall of Famer. But now, it's time for the main event of the evening, as it's time for the Women's World Championship Triple Threat match. Who will stand tall while the match is on, and Naomi immediately rolls to the outside. She wants none of Io Sky and Rhea Ripley, who stare holes with one another, until eventually they switch their attention to the champion, as they both go to the outside and take it in turns to send Naomi into the barricade. And after this, the champ is then hit with a double suplex onto a concrete floor and steel steps. And after another this time in the ring, we see that the double teaming isn't quite done, as Rhea holds Naomi as Io punches her gut, which is followed up by a roundhouse kick courtesy of Mommy. Then Rhea headbutts Naomi, beautifully transitioning into some double knees by Io. Yet that's when Mommy attempts to steal the win and finally pin the Genius of the Sky, which fails. And when both women get up, Rhea merely says that she did what she had to do, getting her a big uppercut for her troubles. Yet her next strike misses, even though she's able to counter her headbutt and flawlessly roll through with another double foot stomp. Then Mommy rolls to the outside, giving Io an idea, as she dives onto her before going back into the ring and doing the exact same thing on Naomi. Though as she goes for a third on Rhea, she gets caught and is planted back first onto the hardest part of the ring. Then it's she who gets an idea, going into the ring and diving onto Naomi. Although as she attempts to do the same on Io Sky, the former Women's World Champion is just able to pick her up and powerbomb her down on the concrete floor. Yet as Io looks to capitalize, Naomi comes out of nowhere and hurls her into the steel steps before throwing Mommy into the barricade and into the ring. But Io attempts to deny her entry into the ring, which doesn't work, as she gets sentoned, with Naomi finally able to get into the ring, as she gets met by Rhea Ripley, who just power stabs her down. But Naomi kicks back, which only gets her a headbutt for her troubles. Then she tries to make her tap in the prism trap, yet as she gets the hold in, Io breaks it up and takes her down by the leg. And as they both get up, they both get taken out by a flying missile dropkick. And from here, Io just strikes the layers out of both of her opponents, which leads to them teaming on Io, ultimately leading to Rhea kicking the head off of both Naomi and Io Sky. Then she looks for a strike on Io, which lands on Naomi, allowing for Sky to take down Rhea before dropkicking the champion to the outside. And with both women on the outside, Io decides to join them by connecting a beautiful moonsault onto both women. And after pushing Rhea into the barricade, she sends Naomi into the ring and once again ascends to the heavens and crash lands onto Naomi with a big jumping DDT. Though she kicks out, so Io looks for something big, which gets ruined by Rhea, who knocks her off the apron and subsequently dives onto her with a clothesline. And once she gets on the apron, she now gets dropkicked next to her frenemy, as it's now Naomi's turn to fly, as after suicide diving onto both, she then hits a crazy springboard crossbody to follow suit. But Io Sky moved, as she hurls Naomi into the ring and quickly follows us up with a springboard dropkick. Then she goes for a moonsault, although now it's Naomi who gets out of dodge at the last second, allowing for her to lock in the Feel the Glow. Sky has nowhere to go, so she has to rely on Rhea Ripley, forcing Naomi off her as she now locks in the prism trap again. Now it's Naomi who has nowhere to go, even though she's able to flip out of it before connecting a jawbreaker with extra pizzazz. And after hitting another dive to the outside, this time onto just Io Sky, she goes back into the ring and looks for a split-legged moonsault onto Rhea, which she's able to scout, although Naomi elbows her back, creating some much needed separation, only for Rhea to jump up and German suplex her off the top rope. Then she goes to the top rope, although Io Sky comes out of nowhere and springboard Hurricanranas her way back into the match. Then she goes for a moonsault on Rhea, and it connects, though Rhea Bloody Ripley kicks out at 2. So Io goes back up for one more, yet she switches things up and moon stomps Mommy. But before she can take advantage of this, she gets blasted in the back with a steel chair courtesy of Naomi. And after disposing of her, she connects the split-legged moonsault onto Rhea Ripley to steal the win. Naomi has done it, she's retained against all the odds, and she's punched her ticket to a showdown with Stephanie Vaque at Clash in Paris. But it's not her who comes out after the fact.
I'm on my own, against the wall.
Bianca Belair is here! She's here for her former best friend. Not to reunite, but to make a statement that she is back for good, as she whips Naomi, who screams in agony. Then she picks her up and KODs the champ. Bianca Belair is no longer injured, as the lasting shot of night one is with Bianca holding aloft Naomi's WWE Women's World Championship. How do we follow this up on night two? Well, we start off the show with a bang. Lyra Valkyria is here, and she's here to dethrone the Women's Intercontinental Champion Becky Lynch. But can she get the job done? Well, the match is on, and both women charge at one another before dueling like there's no tomorrow. But eventually, Lyra overwhelms Becky, staggering her long enough for her to attempt an early Nightwing. Yet the man slips out of it and manages to connect a manhandle slam. But the Bird Lady kicks out, so Big Time Bex goes to the outside and grabs a shovel. She wants to quite literally bury Lyra Valkyria. Yet the challenger is able to wrestle the weapon off her and smack her down with it. And after another smack to the face, she puts the shovel down, and then she hurls the champion to the outside, as of course she follows, using her own feet as a battering ram, which works wonders. And with a Russian leg sweep into the barricade, she sends Bex into the ring, although before following her, she goes under the ring and grabs a table, which gets set up almost immediately after this. But this gave Becky enough time to recuperate, as she spears Lyra through the table. Then she gets manhandle slammed onto the barricade as well, before Becky grabs another table as she puts it into the ring. And after being launched into the ring post and steel steps, Bex grabs a third table and sets it up on the ramp. Then she tries to put her through it, failing miserably as Lyra gets back on top, and after hurling Becky over the table, she is then the one who attempts to put Big Time Bex through it. Yet she counters with a beautiful uppercut. And from here, for the second time in the match, Lyra Valkyria is put through a table. But she wants to make it a trifecta as she puts Lyra into the ring and sets up the table once again on the outside. Yet as she goes into the ring, Karma comes and bites her in the arse, with her now being the one put through the table. And now that both women are back into the ring, Lyra smashes Becky with a table in the face before deadlifting her up and planting her with a gut-wrench powerbomb. Becky Lynch's reign could be over, though it can last a little longer, as she survives. So Lyra goes to the top rope, looking for a frog splash, yet all she can find is a second manhandle slam out of nowhere. But Lyra is seemingly immune to the move, as she is able to kick out again. So Becky calls for the Bird Lady to get up for just one more, although that is nowhere to be found, as Lyra counters and connects the Nightwing. Yet even her best shot isn't enough to put Becky Lynch down. So she grabs the shovel and just beats it into Becky until she gets an idea, dropping the weapon in favour of something all too familiar with this match, a table. As with it set up, she puts Becky onto the top rope and with all the energy she has left, connects an avalanche Nightwing through the table. And of course, that keeps Becky Lynch down for the 3. Lyra Valkyria has done it. She has vanquished the demon of Becky Lynch and has restored honour to the Women's Intercontinental Championship. And on top of that, she is the first ever 2-time Women's Midcard Champion in WWE. It's a huge moment for her, although the celebrations get cut short when Bayley comes out of nowhere and drops her with a rose plant. Then she grabs the title and just waits. And once Lyra crawls her way to her feet, she gets blasted with a title shot to the skull. Bayley has betrayed Lyra, and she has shown her true colours. The hatred burns brighter than ever, and Lyra Valkyria wants some vengeance. But how do we follow this? Well, it's time for a match that should have taken place on night 1, though due to Drew McIntyre's outburst, it wasn't to be. But who has Logan Paul chosen as his new partner? Well, it's none other than Carmelo Hayes. This is a big spot for him, as when the match begins, the Maverick immediately tags out to him. He wants none of Randy Orton, yet Melo wants all of the Viper, as he demands for him to bring it, which the legend of course does, pounding him with punches until he takes Melo to the outside and back suplexes him onto the barricade. Yet Logan Paul then distracts him long enough for Melo to get back on top, sending the Viper into the exact same barricade. And after putting him into the ring, he chucks him into the corner as Logan finally enters the match, with the two Irish ripping Orton, who hangs onto the ropes, before sending Melo out of the ring and subsequently battering Logan Paul. But as Melo looks to get back into the match, he gets met by the three most dangerous letters in sports entertainment. Yet the Maverick then attempts to roll him up, which fails, and as both men get up, Paul gets hit with a RKO as well. Then he tags in Jelly Roll, who not only chokeslams the YouTuber, but he also pulls out a moonsault out of nowhere as well, which keeps Logan down for the 3. Randy Orton and Jelly Roll pick up the quick win. It's a feel-good moment for the pair, and there's no Drew McIntyre in sight, as the celebrity and the future Hall of Famer stand tall. So what's next for Randy and Drew? Well, before we find out, it's time for some absolute carnage, as 12 men, 6 teams compete under TLC, 25 years after the first was done. Can they top that magic? Well, naturally, the match is utter chaos, there's bodies everywhere, but eventually, each man gets taken out of the match, which starts off late in the match with the champions, as every single member of the Wyatt Six aren't safe, as after Joe Gacy and Dexter Lewis are put through tables, so are Eric Rowan, Uncle Howdy, and even Candice LeRae puts Nikki Cross through one as well, ultimately leading to her and B-Fam brawling to the back. Now there's only 5 teams left standing, and DIY makes that 4, as after super kicking Chris Sabin, Johnny Gargano powerbombs Chris onto a ladder on the outside. And as soon as this happens, Tommaso Ciampa fairy tale endings Alex Shelley onto a ladder as well. Though now, Fraxium come to the aid of their friends, as Fraxium Spanish flying Johnny Gargano through one more table, Nathan Frazier, Phoenix smashes Tommaso Ciampa on the outside of the ring. But as this is happening, we see Rey Fenix and Andrade take out the Street Profits on the ramp. As now, only 2 teams are left standing, and it's looking like a dynamic duo, Phoenix and Andrade, may be able to win, though as they climb their ladders, Fraxium join them for one final duel. And it's looking like it could swing either way, they're both so incredibly even, but then Phoenix gives Andrade one final shot by taking himself and Axiom out of contention of the match. Now only 2 men are left, Andrade and Nathan Frazier, and Andrade manages to knock off Frazier, or so you think, as Seth Rollins Jr. beautifully springboards from being fallen back onto a ladder, as if Andrade being startled by this, he gets knocked down. And now that everyone else is down, Nathan Frazier reaches to his and Axiom's destiny. As with that, Fraxium are the new WWE Tag Team Champions. It's the biggest moment of both men's careers, and now they are the top dogs of arguably the best tag team division in the world. But before the next match, we see something unannounced. Julia is here, and she's pissed off, demanding respect after being left off SummerSlam and after barely getting any TV time as the champ, which brings out Zelina Vega, with the two engaging in a wild brawl that only stops when Julia manages to plant the former Women's United States Champion with a Northern Lights bomb on the concrete floor. And as she walks to the back, after a mic gets cut off, she gets confronted by a competitor in the next match, as Stephanie Vaque stands face to face to her past rival. Though she lets her past, as Vaque teams with Nikki Bella and none other than the returning Brie Bella to take on all three members of the Secret Service. And Stephanie Vaque starts things off with Piper Niven, as the two lock up, though Piper breaks it off and looks for a headbutt, which gets blocked, as Vaque looks for a super kick, which is caught by the special intelligence of Chelsea Green, yet Vaque attempts to get out of her grasp, which ultimately fails, as Vaque gets bulldozed by Niven. Although after an overnight suplex, La Primera kicks back and kicks Niven down as well. Then she goes to grab the ropes, giving Niven enough time to recover as she's able to connect with an elbow and brutal clothesline. Then she hurls her into the corner, tagging in Chelsea Green, with her double axe handling La Primera alongside attempting to take her down, finally succeeding with a knee. As she quickly tags out to Alba Fire, who tries to stop Stephanie from tagging into either of the Bellas, which fails only temporarily, as Alba just starts to scratch Stephanie while on her back, and once she gets off, she super kicks her down. But this doesn't keep her down for the free, as she kicks out. So Alba just boot washes Stephanie, showboating as she does it, and once she's done, she connects a front suplex before trying to grab her. Yet Vaque knees back, although there's no follow-up, as Alba is able to take her down, forcing Stephanie's head down to the mat several times. And even if Vaque attempts to fight back, the result is inevitable, as she gets forearmed down. Then she lights her up with a flurry of high kicks, before tagging in Chelsea Green, who just punches Stephanie in the stomach, before throwing her back into the corner, tagging in Piper Niven, with the two nailing a simple but effective double back suplex. But Vaque survives, yet she's not thriving, as she gets powerbombed into the canvas before just driving her head into the exact same canvas. And with a headbutt to the back of the skull, Piper tags in Chelsea Green, with the two connecting another simple double team move. This time, it being a double clothesline, which to the behest of Green yields the same result. But as she attempts to grab Stephanie Vaque, she fights back, even being able to drop Chelsea with a super kick. Yet before she can tag in one of the Bellas, she does none other than the Devil's Kiss, and once she's done, she goes for the tag. But Nikki and Brie Bella jump off the apron. They've just abandoned Stephanie as they just walk away from the match, leaving La Primera in a 3-on-1 handicap match situation, but she fights on regardless, even if the numbers game naturally overwhelms her. Yet she sticks in the fight no matter what gets thrown at her, although she's being dominated by the Secret Service. That is until Stephanie Vaque is able to reverse a powerbomb with a trio of punches, as from here, it's all things La Primera, as after taking down all three women, she SVBs the leader of the Green Regime, Chelsea Green. Then she goes to the top rope, looking for a corkscrew moonsault, although all she can find is the Women's World Champion, who pushes her down whilst the referee was distracted. And with this comes opportunity, as Piper Niven tags herself back into the match, and Michinoku driver Stephanie Vaque. Then Alba Fire gets tagged in, who ascends to the heavens and crash lands to earth on La Primera with a big swanton bomb. And to complete the trifecta, Chelsea Green stumbles into the match and connects the unpretty her onto the motionless opponent, picking up the pinfall win over the future contender to Naomi's Women's World Championship. It's a huge win for the Secret Service, yet they may have only won because of the Bella Twins' lack of involvement. But would this have been the case? Well, before we find out, it's time to find out who will say the words, "I'm a liar," in the I Quit match between Karrion Kross and Sami Zayn. As the match is on, and the killer immediately hurls the underdog to the outside with a belly-to-belly suplex, yet Zayn holds on for dear life, and he pushes Kross back as he ascends to the heavens and crossbodies the killer. Then Sami sends him to the outside, and soon follows, connecting a big DDT onto the concrete floor. But Sami's only just started, as when Karrion gets up, he's met by a suicide dive, yet he won't stay down, so Sami nails another dive onto him, and after hurling him into the barricade, Zayn looks for a moonsault off the barricade, which Kross avoids, before getting on top of his opponent and forearming him in the back of the head twice. And once he's done, he asks if Sami wants to admit that he was a liar, which he of course refuses. So Kross just knees him back down, although Zayn kicks back, sending him into the barricade one more time. Then he just drags Kross up the ramp, and with him in position, he looks to suplex the killer onto the concrete floor. But he escapes his grasp, subsequently hurling him up the ramp, and from here, he just mauls at Sami, grounding and pounding him until he relents, as beating him is not his task, as he asks again if Sami wants to admit it, which he denies. So he just roundhouse kicks the underdog before throwing him into the ring and nailing a Doomsday Sayudo suplex. And then he applies the Kross jacket, demanding for Zayn to give up, which he doesn't, though at the same time he can't escape the hold as he passes out. But that isn't an admission of guilt, so the match continues, with Kross retrieving the baseball bat. And now that the weapons are involved, it's all things Kross, as he just swings the bat into Zayn's gut over and over again. Yet no matter how many times that bat gets swung, Zayn just won't quit, and eventually he fights the bat off Kross before nailing back-to-back clotheslines alongside his pop-up dropkick. He's fighting with everything he has left, as he then turns his attention to the bat, picking it up and smashing it into Kross. But he doesn't stop, he just swings it endlessly at his rival. That is, until he realises what he's done, the damage he's caused, the people he's hurt. Maybe, just maybe, Karrion Kross was right. And once he gets to his feet, Sami says the words, "I'm a liar." And naturally, Kross loves this. He's won, and he's showboating that he was right in front of Sami's face. And eventually, Sami just smacks him in the face with the bat before putting him in the corner and connecting a haluva kick. And with that, he walks away a changed man. He realises his flaws, but the question is, can he overcome them? Or will them demons be what ultimately creates a monster? Well, before we find out, it's time for the United States Championship Steel Cage match between Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa. But before the match can officially begin, we see backstage footage of a downed Tonga Loa, JC Mateo, and even Tala Tonga. There's going to be no shenanigans whatsoever, and Solo is terrified of this as he begs Jacob off, which of course doesn't work, as Jacob batters his own family, including a multitude of headbutts in the corner alongside a knee. And the headbutts continue to rain down on Solo, as once Jacob is done, he Irish whips the champ into the steel cage itself. Then Jacob picks him up powerbomb style, and once again uses the steel cage to his advantage, along with just powerbombing Solo back down to reality. And Fatu uses the steel again, with him just launching Sikoa into it. Then he does this again, though it's Solo's head that gets bounced off the steel. And after one more time using the steel to Jacob Fatu's advantage, he just nails a pop-up Samoan drop onto the champion. And he then sends Solo into the corner, taking him down as he looks for the running hip attack, and he finds it. Jacob is completely manhandling Solo. though as he goes for the double spring moonsault, the champ manages to evade it and quickly grabs Jacob by the throat to connect a Samoan spike. Yet Jacob Fatu kicks out, so Solo just tries to escape and he nearly does, but Jacob is up and meets him at the top of the structure. It's a precarious position for both men to be in, and ultimately it's Solo who falls, being pushed back into the ring, though Jacob follows as he splashes a man he used to love. As with that, we have a new United States champion. Jacob Fatu is now Mr. Two-Time. He has regained the title. But what's next? Well, before the Vision's tag team match, we see backstage Bron Breakker walking past Penta, along with Bronson Reed walking past LA Knight. Will they get involved in the match? Well, with all the stars making their entrance, this match is underway. And Bron Breakker immediately looks for a spear onto Jey Uso, who manages to counter it, as he attempts one of his own, which gets blocked all the same. And after a quick cheap shot of Roman, Bron manhandles Jey across the ring, though he knees back, sending Bron out of the ring and quickly diving onto him, which gets met by a thunderous spear out of nowhere. Jey Uso has just been crushed, but Bron can't get the job done early as Jey kicks out. So Bron tags in Bronson, who just bulldozes his way through Jey like he was nothing. And after a back suplex, Reed looks for an early tsunami, although Jey is able to avoid it and is quickly able to tag in Roman Reigns. And he steps up to Big Bronson Reed, as after a fierce stare down, the two begin to just fight. But it's incredibly even, each man has a counter for the other. Then both men stand stern, until Bron Breakker asks for the tag, which Reed obliges to, as we get a stare down for the ages, which gets interrupted by Paul Heyman, who allows for Bron to get the jump on Roman, and he feasts like a big dog, munching on his prey. He even connects a gorilla press slam, though Reigns survives, which merely means that the feast can continue, as Bron clobbers Roman in the back of the head twice before tagging out to Bronson Reed, who just crushes the OTC, which Paul Heyman absolutely loves. Though what he doesn't love is LA Knight coming out merely to send the Oracle to the back. He wants this to be a fair fight, as he subsequently leaves the four larger-than-life athletes to do battle. And Roman is still being dominated by Bronson, as the big man just continues manhandling the OTC. That is until he tags back in Bron Breakker, who just kicks Roman in the gut, which is quickly followed up by a simple scoop slam and an effective taunt. But this fires up Reigns, who kicks back and big boots Bron down, allowing for Jey Uso to get the tag. And he's completely overwhelming Bron. That is until Bron effortlessly counters Jey with a big slam. And after a $1 million punch right in the nose and an elbow to the forehead, he goes for a standing moonsault, which Jey escapes out of, although all this can get him is being slammed right back down. Then Bron decides to go and grab a steel chair placed by the Oracle. He just wants to hurt Jey, but that's when Penta comes out of nowhere and takes it off him, as he too, just like Knight, wants this match to be fair. Though he gets speared for this transgression, yet as Bron gets back into the ring, he gets met by a Jey Uso spear, and this gives Jey enough time to tag out to Roman Reigns, whilst Bron tags out to Bronson Reed. And it's now Roman who's able to get on top of Bronson, even managing to connect a very impressive Uranagi. Then he looks for the Superman punch, which lands, as he then lines up the big man for a spear, yet Bron Breakker comes out of nowhere and spears the big dog, before quickly spearing Jade to the outside. This is Bronson Reed's opportunity, and he seizes it, ascending to the heavens and tsunamiing Roman Reigns before allowing Bron Breakker to hit one more spear for him to pick up the win in arguably the biggest win of his career. Both Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed look like $1 million, all at the expense of two former World Heavyweight Champions. But now, it's time for the ultimate main event of the evening, as it's time for Cody Rhodes to get one more chance at taking down John Cena. But can he get the job done? Or will Big Match John retain? While the match is on, and Cena immediately goes to the outside. Yeah, that was just so he could grab a kendo stick. And once he gets back into the ring, he demands for the American Nightmare to bring it. Which he doesn't, as he goes to the outside and grabs a sledgehammer before re-entering the ring. Now it's him who demands Cena to bring it, as both men go to the center of the ring and swing their weapons, with the sledgehammer beating the kendo stick. But Cody is a man of diversity, as he grabs Cena's weapon and smacks it in his face, making him gush blood. And Cody just relishes in it, beating the kendo stick into Cena until it eventually snaps. And with that, Cena rolls to the outside. Then Rhodes looks for a dive, although Cena is able to keep a hold of him and plant him through the announcer's table with an AA. And naturally, Cena attempts to get the pinfall win as soon as possible, though Cody Rhodes kicks out at 2. So Cena looks for another AA, yet Rhodes escapes his grasp before lining him up and connecting across Rhodes, and he scurries into the cover, thinking that may be it. Though he thought wrong, as Cena survives. So after a quick kick to the nuts, he picks back up the sledgehammer, yet Cena is able to take back control and sends Cody out of the ring. Then he decides to go high risk, which gets him no reward, as Cody catches him and power bombs him on the remaining announcer's table. And after being held into the barricade, Cody decides to redecorate. And once he's done, he grabs the steel steps and smashes them into Cena's face and plants them on top of him. Then he just grabs him and puts him on the announcer's table before joining him. Yet Cena blocks a punch, as he then suplexes Cody off the table to the concrete floor. And after hurling Cody into the ring post, Cena just powerbombs him onto the steel steps. Cody is out. So Cena strolls into the ring and grabs the sledgehammer before going back to the outside and hammering away at Cody Rhodes. Though eventually he stops, as he wants to AA Cody through the another announcer's table. But Cody fights out of it, and he plants the leader of the C Nation with a big time pedigree. Then he puts Cena back onto the announcer's table and puts him through it with a big brain buster. And whilst he's out, Cody grabs the table, putting it into the ring and putting it into the corner. And once he throws Cena into the ring, he looks to put him through the table. Yet Cena counters and drops Rhodes before locking in an STFU. Cody has nowhere to go, but he won't give up on his dream. His American dream, as after fighting out the submission and crawling to his feet, he punches Cena over and over again until finally, after lots of teasing, he nails the bionic elbow. Then he manages to put Cena through the table, and from here, Rhodes grabs the chair and brings it into the ring. But he puts it down as he wants to Cody cutter Cena, yet this ends in catastrophe as Cody doesn't land the cutter and he lands on the chair, leading to the beginning of the 5 moves of doom, as after back-to-back shoulder tackles, he nails a spinning suplex. And I think you all know what comes next, as after a 5-knuckle shuffle, Cena AAs Rhodes on top of the chair. but Cody Rhodes somehow kicks out. And in Cena's desperation, he unhooks the turnbuckle pads before bloodying the American Nightmare up through stiff punches left, right and centre. And Cody crawls into the exact same corner that's exposed, although he's able to fight back and smash Cena's skull against the exposed metal. Then he connects not one crossroads, not two crossroads, but three crossroads, back to back to back on the steel chair. Yet this trinity just can't do the trick. Cody can't believe it, so he goes berserk, grabbing the steel chair and unleashing it on John Cena just like Stone Cold did to The Rock at WrestleMania 17. And once he's done, he goes into the cover, and just like that, just like at that show, the opponent stays down for the free. Cody Rhodes has done it. He has saved wrestling, and that's because he didn't hesitate, he didn't let up, he showed his vicious side, a side we may start to see more of in the near future. Though that's the future, we're in the present, and Cody Rhodes has just won the WWE Championship. But what's next for both men? Well, we're just gonna have to wait and see. As if you like this story, I think this might interest you.